So, I've been thinking about a few things. Yo, what's up, what's up? Welcome to Al's Thoughts yet again. Anyways, I've been watching the news and that's kind of what my thinking's been about. So, the Iran peace talks, or peace deal, diktat, demand, I don't know how you'd phrase it. But yeah, so okay, to sum up today's news, kind of, or well, very badly, but just to give a little summary of what I heard this morning, South African time. This morning, apparently the chief of the navy, don't get me on the title, but the one of the people in the navy, one of the big generals, resigned from Trump's parliament, basically quit. Possibly that might be to be with the fact that now America's started boarding boats or whatever, or actually I'm not sure why he quit, but yeah, basically I'm presuming he's uncomfortable about some of the activities that the Navy's getting up to. And yeah, that kind of brings me to my next point, which is I was watching Caroline Levitt give a little bit of a talk. They had her on the news and she was commenting on how basically the blockade is working because it's choking off Cog Island. And I know they've been using a lot of double definitions for words and stuff in terms of talking about the war. But basically when I heard her say that, I was thinking, hang on a second, if she's talking about choking people off, is that not more of a siege than a blockade? So I looked up the definitions in the dictionary, and the definition of blockade is to essentially control what passes through an area, limit the movement of people and vehicles and goods, kind of. Although a siege would be if you are basically doing the same thing but in an attempt to strangle off until they surrender. So that got me thinking, hang on, is this a blockade or is this a siege? Because by the definition of, I know technically Iran does have land routes by which they can import and export goods as well, but for all intents and purposes, this is a siege of Cog Island, if you look at it that way. Because basically Cog Island is, Iran's number one oil export terminal where 90% of their oil gets exported. And essentially, with the blockade going on, if the blockade was working 100%, there's stories that apparently between 26 and 32 vessels have bypassed the blockade without being stopped. So I don't know whose vessels or anything like that, but assuming the blockade is working, if it is 100% effective, then that would mean that Cog Island is essentially choked off, which would make this a siege on Cog Island as opposed to a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. And is it really a blockade? Because he's only stopping Iran's ships, so... I'm talking about the American blockade. They're only stopping Iranian ships. So technically that should be a siege. Another thing was the fact that America plans to start stopping and boarding vessels in international waters. I don't know how that works out in terms of the blockade thing, because yes, if they were stopping boats in the Strait of Hormuz, I would agree that is definitely part of the blockade. But if they're planning to stop ships, I don't know, somewhere off the coast of India or halfway to China or wherever it may be, That for me would be, well, technically an aggressive act in international waters. Maybe I'm using the wrong words, but for me that would be an act of war as opposed to being part of a legally defensible blockade, or well, if it can be legally defended in any way. Yeah, so basically I'm looking at this and I'm starting to think I don't really think we're in a state of ceasefire, and seemingly it does not look like we're going to get peace anytime soon, because after the US boarded the Iranian vessel and stopped it, Iran, obviously tit for tat style, said, well, if you're boarding vessels, then we're boarding vessels. And apparently they boarded two vessels. I'm not sure which country they're from, but they did board two vessels, and basically I like it because the excuse, okay, well, yeah, I found it funny. The excuse they gave was that they stopped the vessels because the vessels weren't responding to their calls as they were going through the Strait of Hormuz, which was the same excuse the Americans used for stopping the vessel for not responding to their calls. Although, I don't know, like, the war's messy, things are getting way crazy, and things are starting to go, okay, I don't know if they've been out of control for a while, but yeah, I think, yeah, this is not looking good, and yeah, well, I'm hoping we're going to get to, actually, I don't know, because the whole thing is, if you get the peace talks, it doesn't, like, well, ceasefire talks, peace deal, peace diktat, Trump's demands, whichever way you want to call it. It's not really about peace as per se, and the level of humiliation that Trump wants Iran to have, I don't think that, well, yeah, I mean, Trump wants to humiliate Iran, and obviously Iran wants to get a win, or basically they don't want this to happen ever again. So pretty much, yeah, it looks like this might drag on for a little bit longer. I'm hoping not, because I'm not looking forward to seeing the fuel prices next month. Excuse the birds, they're pretty noisy. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to think about, all I've been thinking about. And yeah, just thinking we got to rewrite the English dictionary, guys, because things are really hard to understand if you understand what words mean, because seemingly either Trump doesn't, or someone in Trump's, actually I think someone in Trump's war room or whatever you call it, and not Pete Hegseth I'm presuming, but one of the other generals, or some of the other generals, are actually really sharp and know what they're doing, because the fact that they're technically doing a siege of Cog Island, while pretending that it's a blockade of, well, the Strait of Hormuz, and most people don't seem to have realized this. I'm like, okay, there could be some brains going on there. Although I'm a bit hesitant to credit Donald Trump with that, but to be honest, if this is Trump, he truly is a master deal maker, so to speak. And yeah, but I'm not giving him the credit though. So anyways, that's my thoughts for now. Until I catch up with you guys next time or whatever, leave your comments, like, subscribe, follow. I would love that. And yeah, cool. Stay safe and keep thinking. This is me signing off.